Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to continue the reading from Brilliant as the Sun, retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Part 1, Vidur's Pilgrimage. We were reading earlier in the day, Chapter 7, which was further inquiries by Vidur. We're going to continue from there and we'll conclude this chapter. Vidur continued, I see that only two types of people feel happy in the material world. One type are those fools who simply indulge the whims of their minds and senses, unmindful of the danger they face. The others are those who attain the transcendental position above even material goodness. They are Paramhansas, or the best of swan-like men. Swans can separate milk from water. Similarly, such transcendental devotees can find the means to serve the Lord in every situation. Thus, they are always happy. Everyone else who is neither a complete fool nor transcendentally situated will experience various degrees of suffering. Vidur felt that he was in this third category. Krishna recommended that intelligent persons inquire about spiritual truths from self-realized souls like Maitreya. By such inquiry, one will gradually be able to distinguish reality from illusion and progressively rise above material misery. Verses 18 to 19 from chapter 7 now. Vidur placed his palms together and said, My dear sir, I am greatly obliged to you. I now at least theoretically understand that material misery is superficial and not intrinsic to the soul. It is like the suffering one experiences in a dream. I am confident that by serving you, it will be possible for me to gradually give up false identification with matter. Indeed, what is impossible for someone who serves a bona fide spiritual master like yourself, just as the Lord killed the invincible demon Madhu, he also destroys the sufferings of devotees who regularly hear from self-realized souls. When Krishna is fully satisfied with the devotee's sincere efforts to serve his representative, he bestows the highest transcendental ecstasy and attachment for his service. Verse 20, O Master, generally not only those who have practiced sufficient austerity get the opportunity to associate with great souls like yourself, who are 100% engaged in glorifying the Supreme Lord. As Vidur bowed his head in reverence, it occurred to him that even those who had not practiced austerity are sure to advance in spiritual life if they somehow or other hear from a great soul like Maitreya. Hearing himself glorified, the sage looked down and folded his palms. He was in no way superior to Vidur, despite being asked by Krishna to instruct him. He knew Vidur was a self-realized soul established in a loving relationship with the Lord. The campfire crackled as the flames leapt up, looking up at the stars. Vidur desired to learn more about creation. He began by summarizing the key points he remembered. Verses 21 to 27 now. Master, I understand that Lord created the Mahat Tattva, from which he manifested the Virat Roop with senses and sense organs. Then he entered the universal form. The original Purush incarnation lying in the causal ocean is Karanodakshay Vishnu. His expansion Garbhodakshay Vishnu manifests the Virat Roop with many legs and hands in which all the planets and their inhabitants exist. You described how there are 10 life heirs in the universal form, along with 3 energies which generate the mind and the controlling gods, the bodily senses and physical elements. You also described how the Virat Roop manifests the senses and sense objects. Maitreya smiled in acknowledgement of Vidur's accurate recall of his teachings. Vidur said, O great sage, kindly now describe the Lord's energies in more detail. I have heard that Prajapatis, who are one of these energies, assisted by their sons, grandsons, and their daughters' progeny, populated the entire universe with all species. Now, I would like to know how the first progenitor, Brahma, brought into being the Manus, the lords of the Manvantara periods. Please speak about the Manus and their descendants. O son of Mitra, please also tell me which planets are situated above the earth and which are beneath it, along with their measurements, including that of the earth itself. Please describe the various species, including celestials, humans, those born of embryo of perspiration and from eggs, and also the varieties of plants and vegetables. How were they all generated and distributed throughout the worlds? As Vidur spoke, still more questions came to his mind. During his long pilgrimage, the many sages and philosophers he had encountered all described material creation differently. None of their explanations had satisfied Vidur. Now that he had the opportunity to inquire from a self-realized devotee of Maitreya caliber, he was keen to hear his authoritative explanations. Verses 28 to 30, Vidur continued, I am also eager to learn more about Krishna's material incarnations in the modes of nature, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, as well as the Lord's spiritual incarnations and his magnanimous activities. O great sage, kindly also speak about the varnas and ashrams into which human society is divided. I would like to understand their symptoms and behavior, in particular their character, in terms of their levels of mind and sense control. I am also eager to learn about the births of the great sages and the different categories of Vedic scriptures. Kindly also explain the sacrifices recommended in the scriptures. I am especially keen to understand the regulations governing the paths of Ashtanga, Sankhya, and Bhakti Yoga. Verses 31 to 32 now. Thinking again of his numerous meetings with theoretical philosophers, Vidur said, in my travels, I have heard many faithless atheists. Please describe the imperfections and contradictions inherent in their arguments. I would also like to know of the social impact of children born from pratiloma relationships. Kindly also explain the future destinations of living beings according to their work and the qualities they cultivate in their current lives. Please describe how, by living a religious life, one can naturally achieve wealth, sense gratification, and ultimately liberation. Kindly explain the different scriptural rules meant to be followed by each varna. Verses 33 to 34. O Brahmin, please explain how the Shraddha, how the Shraddha rites for one's deceased relatives should be performed, as well as how Pitrilok, where one's pious ancestors dwell, was created. I am also curious to know how time is measured in the different planets. Please describe the results of giving charity, performing austerity, and executing community service such as digging wells. I would also like to know the duties prescribed for a person away from his home, as well as those of a person in a distressed situation. Verse 35, O sinless one, since the Supreme Lord is the controller of all living beings, everyone should try to please him, whether they desire material benefit or divine love, prema. Kindly therefore describe how the Lord can be fully satisfied. Verse 36, Vidur had heard so many fallacious theories, but he could not remember them all. He therefore said, O best of the Brahmins, there are many subjects which are beneficial to understand that I may have neglected to ask about. A spiritual master like yourself is very kind. Therefore, please instruct me in all topics helpful to my spiritual advancement, even if I have not mentioned them. Verse 37. As he spoke, other questions came to mind related to misconceptions he had previously heard. Remembering how certain philosophers advocated all jivas were actually one with Krishna, and merged back into him at the time of destruction, losing their individuality. He asked, Master, I am curious to know about the universal dissolutions. How many types are there? Are all living beings destroyed along with the universe, or do some survive to serve the Lord whilst he sleeps? Verse 38, please also explain the truths regarding the identities and relationships of the individual souls, like souls and Krishna, as well as those portions of the Upanishads which describe these subjects. What are the qualifications of a genuine spiritual master fit to disseminate such knowledge, and of the disciple who can receive the teachings? Maitreya raised an eyebrow in surprise and laughed as if to say, you are asking a lot of questions. Verses 39 to 40 now. Vidur blushed slightly. Master, there are many inexperienced people who'd advocate self-realization without the help of a spiritual master. They think it possible to understand truth by speculation, but I have heard that learned, pure devotees do not approve of conjecture. They say it is only possible to become detached from this world and rise to the spiritual platform of loving service to the Lord with guidance of an authorized spiritual master like yourself. My dear sage, I have asked all these questions because I want to understand the principles which will enable me to attain Krishna's transcendental loving service. You are a kind friend to all souls who have lost their way in this world due to bad association. Therefore, kindly instruct me. Vidur placed his head at Maitreya's feet. Verse 41, O sinless Maitreya, by giving clear knowledge on these will also grant immunity from material miseries to others even in the future. Parikshit sat spellbound, careless of hunger, thirst, or fatigue in the darkness of the night. He could not see the features of the sages in the audience. Shukadev's noble visage alone was visible by the moonlight. The youthful sage sat straight back, the forefinger of his right hand raised in the mudra of instruction as he continued to speak. Maitreya is the chief of sages and always enthusiastic to speak about Krishna. Enlivened by Vidura's questions, he joyfully narrated the sections of the Purans which deal with the Lord's transcendental activities. He paused and looked querulously at Parikshit to see if he had any questions. Parikshit said, Master, kindly tell me all that Maitreya told my great uncle, the saint Vidur. Pleased by the king's eagerness, Shukadev replied, Hear now Maitreya's teachings. So we'll begin chapter 8 next time, appearance of Brahma from Vishnu. Thank you for joining. Hariyam Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Everyone, please stay safe and follow all the guidelines of your local authorities. Even if you had some doses of the vaccine, whether it is one or you had both, the situation is still, we are still not all out of danger. In the Indian subcontinent, it is very, what should I say? What's the right word? Well, a lot of mercy from the Lord is needed there, and it's, we just pray to Lord that the situation gets under the control, and the people, they abide by the rules and regulations, and maintain the social. Just stay home. If it's not necessary, don't venture out, and do the needful. And please read the Narsimha Kavach or listen to the Narsimha Kavach. I've given the link to the YouTube, and there's one Narsimha Kavach recitation done on the channel itself as well. Hariyam Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.